Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. I'm so excited to be joined by Helene, Cahen, who is an innovation strategist, trainer, facilitator, and speaker with over 20 years of experience helping companies navigate innovation challenges. She's the founder and principal consultant at Fire Up Innovation Consulting, where she guides Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, and nonprofits to understand innovation, create innovative new products and services, and build effective teams and support a user-centered culture. And I'm so excited for this conversation because Helene is also the author of a fantastic read. It's called Fire Up Innovation, Sparking and Sustaining Innovation Teams. Helene, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Shalom. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely excited to have you. So I always love to get to know the person behind the microphone. I mean, I know you are fired up on the topic of innovation, but where did you catch that bug initially? Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
It's a long story, but I make it short for the audience. So I was born and raised in Paris, and I went to business school. And of business school, I was trying to find the most creative job I could do. And so I worked in advertising for a while and really loved the novelty and especially the new products. And then I moved to this country almost 30 years ago and worked in marketing research for a little bit, and then was kind of good at it and really bored with it. And so I went back to school and I got an MS in creativity and change leadership from Buffalo State, and really kind of been focusing my practice around innovation and change for the past 15 years.
Absolutely. And you capture many of those lessons in, I hesitate calling it a book because it's really a roadmap to help solve some real challenges. And because today's challenges, again, whether it's individual, business focused, or world problems, are complex, and we know that it requires that innovation. So again, the book is called Fire Up Innovation, Sparking and Sustaining Innovation Teams. So let's talk a little bit about one of the things that's in the book is you stress the importance of diversity in driving innovation. Why is that, Helene?
Why? Because as you mentioned, problems are really complex. And so we really need to embrace multiple perspectives. And so diversity of everything is really important, from background to experiences, to race, to gender, to also diversity of thinking, which is something that is not talked about so much. But we need people that solve problems differently. And together, it might be a little more challenging than people that look like us and do things like us, but it's actually how you're going to be able to solve complex problems and offering solutions that are actually going to meet multiple customers and users, because they also have multiple perspectives.
Absolutely. And so in the book, you talk a little bit about the characteristics of the innovation process, because many of our listeners know the word innovation and they think they understand it, but you talk about the process. In a couple of minutes or so, I mean, Helene, can you outline what does that process look like for somebody that hasn't really explored innovation and studied it quite like you and your team?
Yes, and I think it's really important because we often focus on the outcome of innovation, which of course is really important, but what is going to enable it? And what enable a better outcome is a very specific process that is clear and that is shared within the team. There's a lot of different processes, but the big picture is when you need to solve a problem, there's 4 things you have to do. First, you have to understand the problem. Then you have to come up with potential ideas. Then you have to develop those ideas into a solution, prototype, and test them. And then finally, the step 4 is to implement them. And so we need to do all this, but we need to understand how to do it together. We also need to understand that we might have preference for different of those 4 parts. And so if I work with somebody, if my preference is really spending a lot of time understanding a problem, which we call clarifying, and I'm working with somebody else whose preference is to get things done, if we don't understand that, there might be a lot of friction because I'm asking all those questions, I wanted more data, and the person on the other end just want to get things done. But if we understand that those skills and those way of thinking are both welcome, because we need to be sure we have the right problem, but we also need to be able to have solutions that we can implement.
Absolutely. I'm chatting with Helene Cahen, who is the author of Fire Up Innovation, Sparking and Sustaining Innovation Teams. Yeah, definitely looking at, the outline that you just provided is really fascinating. It makes a lot of sense. And we know that sometimes, the solutions we come up on the first try may not work. And so, it's interesting. Being flexible is certainly, a big part of it. And I've been thinking about that quite a bit in advance of this conversation. One of the unique things going on right now as we have this conversation in 2024 is that there's a lot of new solutions that are out there. One of the big buzzwords, which we talk about quite a bit on this program, is AI, artificial intelligence. So, Ellen, it's all the rage right now, but where does AI come into in the innovation process?
And that's a really good question, and it's obviously changing every day. So I'm just going to give the answer that I think is relevant right now. And it is that, in a creative and innovative process, there's two things we have to do. We have to diverge and look at options, be options of ways to look at the problem, ways to look at ideas, ways to develop solutions, or even ways to implement a plan. But we also need to converge and make those decisions. And I think that AI can be used definitely on the diverging piece. They can help you collect data. They can help you list a bunch of problems. They can help you coming up with additional ideas and the team might not have. They might help you create prototype faster and cheaper. And they might help you try different things. But at the end of the day, I think as humans, I still have a place to make those decisions because there's things that we know from our own experience, from the perspective that I think AI is not that great yet at capturing. So that would be my take: is use it as a partner as you innovate, but also be very aware of how you want to make the decision. And the other thing with AI, it's a black box. So as a group, we can decide and be clear about how we decide. But if we let AI do it, how do we know how they actually even come up with their options?
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if we have this conversation in even just a few months, I'm sure that will evolve and change probably many more times, but really great perspective right now. And, again, we're chatting about fire up innovation. And obviously innovation is something that, often I know you talk a lot about in the book, there's some large teams, high performing, there's teams that are out there, and certainly innovation is key in those Fortune 500 companies, many of which you consult with. But it's also true in small businesses, maybe even more relevant in entrepreneurial organizations. So, Ellen, we only have a few minutes, but I'd love to get your advice for the entrepreneurs, the small business owners that are tuning in and they're thinking, gosh, this all sounds wonderful when you've got large resources, when you have all those, deep pockets to pull from. But what about the small business owner and the person that's just getting started right now? What advice would you share that's relevant to them?
Well, I think it's relevant for everybody. And I would say, especially in this climate, if we don't innovate, it's likely that your business is going to be dead pretty soon. I know it's harsh, but that's a reality because the world is changing around us. So whether we want it or not, we have to embrace change and, be sure that we have way to think about it. So a lot of the tools that I have in my books and the process applies to big projects and big teams, but you can do it by yourself. It applies to, okay, let's be sure I'm digging enough information and talking to enough of my users and customers that I'm sure I understand that this is the problem I need to work on. Let's be sure when I have an idea that I have more than one, but I try to have 20 or 30 or 50 before I jump to that idea. Then the next step will be, let's be sure that I have some ideas of new things to do. How do I test them and prototype them so I don't go into jump into something and it's going to be really costly to fail? So I'll take the time and I can be small. I just have an idea and talk to 3 of my customers and see what they think about it. And just that will give a lot of feedback. And then finally, when you implement something, same thing. You need to kind of try things and be sure that you get the time to analyze lesson learned and failure, because you can only succeed if you fail at time and be willing to learn from that.
Absolutely. Ellen, I really enjoyed our conversation. I've learned a lot about firing up innovation, which is the name of the book, Fire Up Innovation, Sparking and Sustaining Innovation Teams. I can't wait to have you back on because I know that this is evolving and we're going to innovate as we go in 2024. But how can our listeners find a copy of your book and how can they get in touch with you and your team?
So my book is available everywhere you can buy books. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores. And then if you're more curious, you can check my website. It's fireupinnovation.com. And there is just my general business as well as a page about my book. So if you're curious about it.
Awesome. Fantastic. Fantastic. And be sure to get on my website, syklein.com. And of course, search on your favorite podcast app for Get Down to Business. Be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share wherever you're finding those podcasts. And we link to all of our amazing guests, including Ellen and everybody that we're having on to the program this week. And the best news of all is that you'll actually be dinged. You'll be notified when a new episode drops. And we link to all of our guests in the show notes as well. So again, don't touch that dial. You're listening to Get Down to Business. We'll be back in just a moment after some quick announcements. We'll be right back on Get Down to Business.